Hello. Now it is our pleasure to introduce Martha Diaz, Sarita Gates, and Adira Johnson, who will be in conversation about archiving hip-hop. Martha Diaz is an award-winning media producer, archivist, curator, educator, and founder of the Hip Hop Education Center. A graduate of NYU's Moving Image Archiving and Preservation program, Diaz has worked on archival projects with Parkwood Entertainment and Tupac Shakur Estate, to name a few. She is an inaugural fellow at the Center for Creative and Entertainment Arts at Virginia State University and curator archivist at the Universal Hip Hop Museum. Sarita Gates is committed to immortalizing hip hop so that it lasts forever. She is an art collector, archivist, and founder of the Gates Preserve. She produces live culinary competitions that bridge hip hop with food and beverage, elevates hip hop culture through Lego, and celebrates Black life as a filmmaker and writer. Gates holds degrees in urban youth culture and moving image archiving and preservation. And Adira Johnson is a PhD student, hip-hop feminist scholar, and the digital collections archivist of the early hip-hop collection at the Museum of Pop Culture. Johnson is working on a two-year grant-funded project where she archives hip-hop artifacts from 1975 to 2001 for the museum's online portal to provide the public access to over 1,300 hip-hop artifacts. Please join me in welcoming our next panel.
Hello? Okay, hey. Hi, everyone. Oh, it's already ready to go. Okay, great. Let me go ahead and click through. Hi, I'm Adira Johnson. I am an Atlanta native, so I'm representing the South today. I am a PhD student, so I'm definitely showing all of the support for our museum scholars who are also working on PhDs as well, because it is hard. But I spent my time being a, hip-hop feminist scholar. More specifically, I've worked to raise awareness for Black women in the South and their connection to dance history through my own theory called Dirty South Feminism, which ultimately highlights the ways in which Black women and girls learn to build community, identity, and self-awareness through the ways that we've learned about hip-hop in the South, which is through dance cultures. And I think the big connection that I have with Mopop and a lot of the work that I do there is that I'm still archiving these stories through dance with my own research, but how I've been able to utilize history, my research methodologies to become an archivist at Mopop. So I was a little nervous about the job initially coming in, but I was really, really excited to be a part of this 2-year project and to do the great things that I do at Mopop. So I want to share just a little bit what I do and how I do it. So initially, the Mopop archives, the way that we work is that we have collected over 2,000 artifacts, but there will be only 1,300 online. However, these artifacts collect and preserve some of the many iconic moments that come out of the early years of hip hop. So the bulk of the exhibit and the bulk of the archive does highlight the early years between 1975 up to about 1999. And so with that, we have flyers, we have fashion, we have musical instruments like DJ Grandmaster Flash's turntables, we have African Bambaata's tape deck. We have a lot of really original pieces and artifacts that have really highlighted the ways in which hip hop was established, coming out of the East Coast, coming out of the West Coast, and as I am always trying to add more ways that hip hop has evolved in the South as well. So I think one of the highlights that I do appreciate about the archive at Mopop is that it does center on history, culture, and impact. And I feel that a lot of people miss the way that hip hop has evolved, a way of a form of expression, a way that Black folks, Black and Latino youth have established themselves living with a lot of the hard constraints of what it means to live in a low-income community. And I do feel that Mopop Archive does a lot of that work, and I feel that a lot of the work that I have being a hip-hop scholar is that I'm telling the accurate stories. I'm making sure that folks are centered, I'm making sure the voices are heard, I'm making sure that I'm being inclusive in the really unique ways that we think about and we learn about hip-hop. And so I really love this, I guess I'm gonna call it a chart. It's my tic-tac-toe of hip-hop archiving chart. And I see it as a way that we can look and kind of connect these different dots in the ways that archiving looks and it feels and how we're using it. And so I feel that with Mopop's archive, for me as I went into the work, is that I am centering myself as a black woman who loves hip hop, who's always been connected to hip hop, and how these stories kind of connect to my memories and thoughts, and how you and other people who engage in the archive collect their own memories and thoughts. And I think ultimately that hip hop and how it was established as a genre of community and culture, we can also look at these various ways that hip-hop looks at culture and how hip-hop looks at legacies, and even how it tells stories of families and how it tells stories of the ways that folks have interacted and communicated and lived together. And so ultimately, I also think the great thing about Mopop is that one of our core missions is that we are educational, that we're a museum that likes to educate. And so with that, we can take the ways that we learn about hip-hop and the ways that we're archiving it to be utilized for oral histories. So we'll see those things in documentaries, we'll see those things in programming, and a lot of those ways, again, that comes across in this tic-tac-toe type of feel. And so with that, I think that when the archive, officially goes online in March of this year, I really want folks to understand that the ways that you guys can connect to it and learn from hip hop, but also the ways in which the archive can educate you on these different pillars of hip hop and how we learn to learn about ourselves and how we also learn to learn about this community. And so archive and practice, I love that we have so many really cool, unique artifacts that highlight specifically my love for women in hip hop, but also the way that we captivate hip hop fashion, the way that we look at storytelling, and we also have a lot of really great pieces in the South. So I think that in practice, Mopop has done a really good job of collecting these artifacts in the way that I'm able to tell the story and the history that shows the story of how people have expressed themselves. And I think one of the great things about these images that I have here are coming specifically out of our archive, but ultimately there's some really cool gems. So the fact that, again, I'm young, and so I did not know that Angie Stone was originally a part of the sequence, and she was really, really great friends with the very first MC, Shakur. And so I had to highlight, again, like that is a story that a lot of folks did not know, or at least I didn't know because I was born in 1992. But the fact that, there are these really great connections, but also how a photo like this can tell a story of a friendship, or even how we can see the impact of No Limit, is a part of this larger history when we look at hip hop in the East Coast, but also how it transitioned in the South. But other than that, I love it here. So thank you.
So first, before we get started, I'd like to say thank you for y'all could have been anywhere in the world. You rocking with us. We appreciate it. Clap it up for yourselves one time. The Gates Preserve is a multimedia experience company committed to archiving and preserving hip hop in such a way that lasts forever. And so second, I always like to talk about my mother and my grandmother. My mother on the right-hand side, Brenda A. Gates. My grandmother on the left-hand side, Jessie Mae Jones Doherty, were the first archivists that I've ever known in my life, period. If you had the type of grandmother that I had, you know about preservation firsthand. Your couch might have been wrapped in plastic. That's a real thing. And so because of those women and just a lot of influences that I had over my life, I feel like the work that I do is grounded in my values, right? Receipts matter. Gratitude gang all the time. Moments matter, those moments that change your life. I use the hashtag Team Us all the time. It's not just about me, it's about we. Always trying to figure out how can I be of service, and the work that I do as a Black memory worker is legacy work for sure. And so, like I said, the Gates Preserve is a multimedia experience company committed to archiving and preserving hip-hop in such a way that lasts forever. And we do that two ways. One, by archiving and preserving work, narrative shaping, legacy structuring for public brands, figures, and creators, and media by producing content from the archive that we have. And fundamentally, at its foundation, we believe that archiving is a statement of value. Period, hard stop. But taking the time to gather, contextualize, catalog and or articulate the moments in someone's life and or work of an individual, culture, or subculture is critical to ensuring that the legacy persists in the world. So the work that Elena and Liz has done is a direct representation of that work. And so some of the archives that we have in the Gates Preserve, we have contact sheets by Jonathan Mannion, we have artwork by Natural, we have the iconic '07 Rockefeller Air Force Ones, shout out to New York one time, Southside Jamaica, Queens in particular. And yeah, again, these are just some of the works that we have. We have every hip hop magazine, period. Yeah. Also, shout out to my guy, Brian, who's from Cali, who made me step my life up. Some of the media work that we've created in the world, Young Schomburg, But Tomorrow Through the Wire, again, LOVE, we rock with a phenomenal, phenomenal team. Some of the books, we have a children's book called Everybody Eats. Get it? Aw, for the babies. When Neighborhood Nip died a few years ago, it was only right that we create Hustle, a little book of affirmation, because, you know, Neighborhood Nip indeed put the battery in our back different from Energizer. See the Nas reference? Come on, y'all, keep up. But fundamentally, we're a flower company, right? Like, all we want to do is acknowledge people. And so the first ways that we've done it, if you know me, I'm a my introduction to fashion was through Polo. And so I'm going to say the lyric. The artist is a little problematic, but Kanye had a line, "Oh, the Polo rugby, it looks so nice. How can something so wrong make me feel so right?" I was like, word? Rugby? Say less. And so in these photos, definitely rugby head to toe. These were high school days. Don't ask me how I was getting money for this, but you know, when there's a will, there's a way, you dig? And I end up working with Ralph, and this is one of Ralph's best friends, Oscar, to create a limited edition jacket that Ralph has on. But fundamentally, as it relates to archival work, I was like, oh, shout out to the lowlives. Because if you were from New York, yes, absolutely clap it up. If you were from New York during a particular time in the 80s, 88 to be exact, and you were outside, you knew how the lowlives were giving it up. And so we created the lowlifearchive.com, in which, you know, in 88, a group of black and brown youngsters made a dash for their version of the American dream. Their stories and impact are often left out of the official narrative about the 80s New York hip hop and fashion. And Erasure, 3 black women, myself, Andrea Battleground, and Jessica Neal, were committed to correcting with this living collection of oral history. So again, that's the lowlives, lowlifearchive.com. And then, you know, some time later, or the reverse, Mary J. Blige was turning 50. We were in a pandemic, and we was like, our good sis, Mary, we have to do something for Mary J. Blige, right? And so it consisted of, I don't know if this is going to play, it consisted of voice messages, love letters, a boot archive. Because if you know Mary, you know Mary is queen of the thigh high, right? Boot archive, videos, and articles. Essentially, To Mary with Love is a multimedia online celebration honoring the life and legacy of our beloved Mary J. Blige on her 50th birthday. Our intention was to give this phenomenal woman her flowers, the woman who has given us so much of herself through songs for the past decade. And that's the Boot Archive, the work that we've done to get 20 years of boots for Mary J. Blige. We can tell you brand, we can tell you height. It gets crazy. Holla at me about that later, but thank y'all for your time. We appreciate it. My bad.
I'm going to stand up because I can't see from back there. But hello and welcome, everyone. And yes, you could be anywhere else, but you're here with us. And thank you, Elena and Liz, for including the archivists. Okay. So Hip Hop as a Living Archive is my quick 5-minute presentation. So I don't have to explain to you why we need hip hop archives, right? But in case you don't know, you know we use the archives for researching and documenting memories and creating new stories and mapping out history and honoring our leaders and building value, but also intergenerational wealth and legacy. I just want to quickly give you a history of hip hop archives. They really began in 1999, just 22 years ago. 23 years ago. And it started at the Schomburg, and then Harvard created their archive, then the American History, then Cornell. And I included Mopop in 2010, 9. They did the oral history, Yes, Yes, Y'all, with Charlie Ahern and Jim Fricke. And then in 2010, 3 hip hop museums are launched. And that's really important because this is still a very new culture and we are just beginning. And what you see here are the first 3 hip hop archivists, formally trained archivists. Here, since that time, these are the ones that are new archives that are popping up, new museums. And shout out to Sugar T, who just started the Her Museum, the first hip hop Women in Hip Hop Museum in San Francisco. What you'll notice is that not only do we have museums, we have archives in libraries, we have archives at universities, and we also have community archives. We're not depending on institutions to preserve our stories. We're developing our own digital asset management systems. Yes, and why it matters that the archivists come from hip hop, because we are the ones that live it. We know the nuances. We know how to create culture. And so, yes, I started as a young buck creating my own sweatshirts and everything back then when I was 10, 11. And then I also worked at UMTV Raps, and I got my degree at NYU. And then I did, yay, NYU. Yes, and I worked for the Schomburg and the Paley Center. I actually archived hip-hop, Ralph McDaniel's video music box, 30 episodes, the first 30. And I worked on Lemonade with Beyonce and Tupac, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it matters. And the symposium, I created a symposium because I was curious. I wanted to see what other collectors were holding on to. I wanted to see what institutions were doing with the collections, how did they appraise collections, how did they work with the community, how are they working with students with the collection. And so this is the first symposium of its kind, and it was in 2012, and our second one was in 2020, right before COVID shut everything down, and so we were the last ones to get together and elbow, remember it was elbow bump at the time. And so, oh, this is not good, but so I decided it was important to start recruiting and training hip-hop archivists at an early age. And so I'm in the process right now of developing a hip-hop pre-apprenticeship program, and it's for kids 16 to 24. I learned about archiving at 40 years old. Kids need to know that they can archive and that this is a viable career. Okay, and so what is a living archive? Well, living archives refers to the practice and environments that connect the organization, curation, and transmission of memory with press-and-bound creative, performative, and participatory processes. That's a long definition, but the point is that we can't have dead archives. We need living archives. And so, for example, the Smithsonian Library has this description of the Yes, Yes, Y'all book, but you don't see that in that book you have Africa Bambaataa, you have Kool Herc, Grandmaster Cass, all these pioneers telling their stories firsthand. Who described this? It wasn't a hip-hop head, that's for sure, because we would have included them. Okay, so I guess my time is up. There was more that I wanted to say. I don't know what happened to my slide, but it's really important. I had a really good conclusion. It's really important that we look into the community as the resource for archiving, and that we should be the ones processing our own collections. And thank you very much, and we'll have a conversation now. Or we're just gonna
We just
chit-chat?
freestyling now.
Freestyle Friday.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So how important is mentoring?
Say that again?
How important is mentoring in the archiving field?
Yo, Martha want me to shout her out. So let me tell you how this happened one time.
Right.
I found out what archiving was. I was working on a project, still am working on a project about hip-hop journalists and their importance in the world, hard stop, right? And one of the journalists called me a hip-hop archivist. I had I'm from Southside Jamaica, Queens. I don't know if you've ever been there. Southside, we outside, Queens get the money. Y'all know what time it is? And I had no clue what an archivist was. Long story short, 3 instances happened. I was like, oh, I could do this archiving thing. I text Martha, yo, Martha, I'm thinking about this program. Yes, all cap. That was my intro in the game. Shout out to my OG one time.
Now it's my turn. Yeah, same thing. I really wanted to do this job so bad. I was just like, I love hip hop. I know I can do this. Let me do it. Then let me do it. And then I'm like, so what do I do? And basically my job was just to provide the history of the artifacts. And I am the only black woman in my job who can do that. So I hit up Martha. And I found Martha because I was literally like on the Universal Hip Hop Museum website, like, who do I need to email? Like, who's the right person? And I saw all the head titles. So I'm gonna go hit up Martha, send her an email. She was just like, hey, like, I can help you. Let's get on a Zoom call. And I think maybe the next week, not even that long, we was on a Zoom call, chit-chatting, giving me all the details, put me on to Sarita, put me on to everybody. I think I met Vicky through, everybody. And then when we had contact, hey, Vicky, Shirt King Faye, oh yeah, Martha was telling me about you. And I'm like, huh, for real? So it was the fact that like Martha put me on, gave me some really cool information, definitely put me with the right people. I've gotten panels and things like that through the support of Martha. So, the fact that sometimes it's hard to figure out what you want to do and knowing that you don't know something and you're scared and a little anxious to reach out to somebody. So the fact that having a mentor is somebody that you can lean on to support you, even though when you are confident to say, you know what, I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, I appreciate that somebody like Martha, or there's somebody in your life that you can go to and like provide that mentorship. So
Thank you. I didn't want to.
That was the plug. It's fine, Martha.
No,
it's cool.
The importance of the mentor is because my mentors are the pioneers. I don't know the answers or all the answers. So I go to, Kool Herc, I go to Pete Nice and Paradise Gray, and I ask them questions. So I'm being mentored, from the architects. And I know that in order to create a pathway of new leadership, we need to create a network. We need to support our young archivists, and so that's why I mention it, because that's probably the most important part of archiving is having a mentor. Really.
I have a question for y'all. So for those that don't know, we've thrown a lot of jargon around, and jargon is cool, but we like to get to the point. An archive is a collection. Everyone has an archive. You got sneakers, that's an archive. You have magazines, that's an archive. You have 979,000 photos in your phone, that's an archive. You all have archives, right? And so inside of that work, what does it look like? Like, what is the first step one person might take to preserve something in their archive?
Clicking that save button. I think that's the most easiest way, like click save. I think, and also just saving what you love. And you can name it however you want to later. So, if you have a bunch of Black Barbie dolls, like that's your Black Barbie archive, But if you have, like me, I'm corny. I love Mary-Kate and Ashley to the end of time. And I have a Mary-Kate and Ashley archive, So it's like whatever you have, whatever you feel is like important to you, like you can create an archive for it. If you have just a whole bookshelf full of books, like that is your archive. So it's just like you making that conscious decision or even an unconscious decision to say like, this is my stuff. And it's your archive, like you said.
Yes. Well, I always tell people, get a spreadsheet together and, number the archives, take a picture, write a description, and include how much it costs, right? Because you'll see the value will change over time. And so, what year it came out, was it the first issue, the second issue, all of that matters. And so just starting with a spreadsheet is what I recommend. And there is a difference between, someone who is a trained archivist or now they call it archivist, archiving technician, because everyone's calling themselves archivists. You can be, you are, right? Like Sarita said, but there is a science to this. People are going to school for this because to preserve the actual object, you need to know, science. You need to know, right? You need to know what the material's made of and how to actually preserve it. But to begin your journey as an archivist, just start cataloging. That's the start.
Martha, what does cataloging mean?
Taking inventory. Really, it's just what I just said. Just take a picture, number it, organize it in a way that you know where it is. And of course, please do not put your archives in the basement.
Or the attic.
Or in plastic bags. These are all things that archivists know because we are trained. And that's why I think moving forward, we need to really do more community archiving workshops so that everyone could know how to do it at home. Archiving history in your own backyard.
Because
No
who knew
plug,
too much
no
lighting
plug.
could ruin anything? Too much lighting could ruin a photo.
everything,
Little
yes.
stuff like that, yeah.
Any questions?
I have a question for you. Oh, never mind. I don't have a question. You have a question.
I do. I just wanted to know, since, like, if you're starting out, what's the best way to preserve outside of using your basement or that? Like, if you don't have the money to, like, buy things or anything like that.
Yeah. You want to take that? Yeah, I think it depends on the format, right? So a T-shirt is different from a pair of sneakers, which is different from a photograph, which is different from your old report card. So based on whatever the format is, it might be as simple as getting an acid-free box, right? You could get one of those for $20
At Staples.
at Staples, for real. And you know what I'm saying? And then you could say, all my documents live here. That's preserved. Or if you have photos, you might say, I'm going to get acid-free sleeves that I can put the photographs in. When you start talking about textiles, that's why the work that Liz and E has done is so important, because when you start talking about textiles and different fabrics, that's when it gets real crazy.
Yeah, because with certain clothing, like leather, you don't want to bend it. So with certain textiles, certain pieces that you have to make sure that you stuff it, a certain way, or that it's put in a box a certain way, or it's in a certain heating environment, or it has to be chilled a certain way, just because you want to make sure you preserve that material. Yeah.
And I would say to veggie back off of that, the reason why we said don't put it in your basements and attics, because you can't control the temperature. Oftentimes, a lot of these materials need to go in very specific temperature-controlled spaces, and that, if it's dead of winter in New York City, and if you're spending $900 million on your heating bill, and it's 93 degrees in the crib, it could get crazy real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for archivists, best practices is saving the item in 7 places. So if it's digital, obviously, like 4 places, a hard drive, a thumb drive, on your computer, and you send it to somebody else to hold on to it. So it's really, because God forbid your house burns down, right? You lose it all.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll see each other again at 10 after 11 for our next talk.